Alright, so now that we have like a basic idea of React and how everything works, we can actually go ahead and start working on the project. So basically for the project, we have to create a to-do list kind of app that we've already created the backend for. So we just need to make the HTTP requests to the backend and display the to-do lists and perform the various editing, deleting, such actions. So for now, I'll just basically clear out my entire app.jsx and let me just delete this button component. These are all just teaching tools. We don't really need them anymore. So we'll just keep the components folder still alive because we'll add some new components. So in app.jsx, let's just type RAFCE and then we'll get this. If you're not getting actually the RAFCE default shortcuts and stuff like that, you can go to maybe extensions and download, search for React, so you can get that installed. Or you can just write this boilerplate. It's not boilerplate code. It's not too big. So const app is equal to this. Whatever is the component name, const that equal to this. Okay. So now let's just remove this div. I prefer these kind of empty tags. So what all do we need? We can think of it as, we can think of this as our like main web page. First, we need like a nav bar at the top. Technically not required for this kind of this kind of a website because it's just like a simple to-do app. But still, let's say we have like login, sign up options and stuff like that. So we'll put those options there on the nav bar. And then so it could be like a simple form or something like that, HTML form. And then let's say we want, what else do we want? We want the actual add to do, so that has to be like a search box or something like that with an add button, so that will allow us to add to dos. And then a display of the display list of to dos. So these are the three things that we may need or we think we need. So now that we logically understand that, let's go ahead and click on Control J on our this thing and stop the server for a while. We need to set up some things. First, we need Axios to perform HTTP requests. So we do npm I Axios. So that will install Axios for us. And then so far we have seen CSS, but now we'll be moving to something known as Tailwind or Tailwind CSS, where we'll be writing the CSS inside the tags itself. Now it is very simple, and I'll show you how to set it up, but be wary that even if you don't understand it, it's all okay, because you can take lot of help through the Tailwind CSS docs in order to how to style a certain web page, or even you can use AI to help you style your website, because the main point of using AI tools in development is that it's inevitable. But the main point should be to focus on logic, our focus should be on coming up with the logic so that our brain understands it. And small things such as the UI and then how it looks or how to make it look in a certain way, all these things can be handled by the AI, provided that you later on understand what styling is happening, what is happening, provided if you understand that on your own once you receive such information from the AI tools. But still, I will show you the basic concepts of Tailwind. We can go through and learn. So first, let's see how to set it up. We go to tailwindcss.com and yeah, pardon the internet. Okay, so now if we go to docs, installation, so install Tailwind CSS, and we have a lot of ways to do it. We are using Vite, so the default one works fine for us. So first we do copy this npm install Tailwind CSS and paste it here. So now it'll start installing. All right, cool. So now that that is done, the next step is we need to go into something known as the vite.config.js. So where is that? vite.config.js, right here. And then we write import Tailwind CSS from Tailwind CSS Vite. and then we add Tailwind CSS function inside the plugins. So plugins, inside this array we add Tailwind CSS. Okay, then we add this @import Tailwind CSS to our CSS file. So that will be our index.css or even app.css, wherever both are being imported. So are they being imported? Import index.css. Okay, so let's just put it in the index.css file. So we'll just put index.css inside the index.css file. We'll put this up and we'll close this. And then finally we can run npm run dev to see. Now how do we make sure that Tailwind is running? Well, we'll apply a basic style and then see if it is actually running or not. So let's say hello, and then div. Immediately the font size should not stay Times New Roman, it should be something else. So if it is that, then we know for sure that it's running. So if we do npm run dev quickly and start the server and go to the same localhost 5173 and run it, you can see that immediately the font is changed. It's not Times New Roman anymore. So that means Tailwind is set up and is working properly. Okay, so now that we know this, how to use the Tailwind documentation is, my favorite way of using the Tailwind documentation is Control K or this search button. You can type whatever you want. So let's say I want to align to a center, or let's say I want to use some flex box, so flex wrap, flex shrink, etc. And then I just find whatever I want and click on it. So let's say if I want to change the font weight, font style, etc. Or let's say if I want to change the color, or like background color, background image, background size, background color. So you can search for the property that you want to put and then go in and see exactly how to do. So bg inherit is the class that you need to add. So basically whatever you want to add, you copy that class name bg black and then come here, and then here we type class name equal to, and then in this string we add bg black. And now if we refresh the site, we can see that this entire div, the background of the div has become black. In fact, if we just make this the only div, or maybe if we do, let's say div /div class name bg black, and then if we refresh, let's say whatever, something we write here. So you can see we can put this inside a separate div, and then we can say give this div also a class name. Now here we have given a background color as black. How do we affect the text color? So I'll just go here, I'll simply search Control K, text color, text decoration color, and then I go here, it says decoration. I don't really no, not the text decoration color, I need just color, maybe working with colors. Let's look at this size, text gray 500. So text, that's how you give the text colors. So you can say, let's say text, let's say red 200, and these 200 values and all these values are just intensities of the colors, so you don't need to worry about that. If you want to know exactly what these colors are, there is an awesome website called as Tailwind Colors. So you can see that these are all the colors that are available in Tailwind CSS. And if you want to access this here, for example, if I want this color, that will be emerald 500. So I can type emerald 500 and see it reflect here. This is now in emerald color. Okay, now let's say I think that this looks too small. Let's say I want to increase the font size. Now how do I increase that? So again, Control K or search font size, and then go here, and then here we can see that in Tailwind we have like set font sizes. So extra small, small, base, large, XL, 2XL, up to 9XL, I believe. So what we can do is, let's say we'll give this text text dash 4XL, and let's make it a meaningful title. Let's call it something like, I don't know, 2 dash. Okay, and then if we refresh it now, we do get a nice title. Now, but I feel that the title is, let's say, too close to the borders or the top and bottom. So I want a little bit of padding. Now, how do I get that? So I just search for padding, padding, then come here. So you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. So P8, let's say I add some P8 padding of 8 across all directions. And then let's say I refresh. Okay, that's a bit too much. So we can reduce. So you get the idea of how to basically go about, styling your web page. So actually, this is better to write all of this inside of a separate component, because this is starting to look like a nav bar or like a top bar. So we'll write this separately. So in components, let's create not a folder, just a file should suffice. nav.js6. Okay, RAFCE. This we have seen, it's all commonplace, and then you just cut this and put it here. Yeah, and then we'll import this nav here. So import nav should recognize automatically. There we go. And then we can use that component here in our app.js6 by typing nav and then backslash close. So now same way, but we have separated the entire nav logic here. Okay, now let's say I want to add like let's say 2 more buttons. So button sign in or sign up, and then another button log in. All right. So yeah, but the buttons have been added, although I can't see them because the colors are not proper. So we need to add style to them. So class name equal to, let's say, text white first of all. Text white. So if you refresh, yeah, we do see that there is a sign up button there. And let's add like a maybe oops, sorry, text XL, and then also a padding of 4, and then maybe we add a border. Now again, how do I don't know how to add a border, say. So I go here again, go to the search, type for borders and border width, or let's say border, and then maybe border white. So now I should be getting like a border here for the button. Okay, so the problem with padding is, let's say the border will still come around the edge, but I want the border to be closer, but I still want a gap from the elements beside it. So this is where margin comes. So instead of padding, if we type M2, so now we can see that the button is away from the other elements on the web page, but it also has a gap between itself and the margin. So okay, but this looks kind of like a boxy button. Let's say I want it rounded. So again, I go to the Tailwind docs, search for rounded border radius, and then there are various levels that I can adjust. So rounded full, rounded none, rounded 2VW, and rounded large. This is basically the most common way to do it: rounded or rounded large, rounded SM. The same SM, XL, extra small, large, 2XL, 3XL, whatever we have seen in text sizes, same we can apply to the roundedness intensity. So let's say rounded, let's say we want LG, so large round, basically large intensity of rounding, and there you go. Now that button looks kind of neat. And so instead of let me just hide this. So instead of writing this again, I'll just copy the class name for the login button as well, so it looks similar. Nice. Okay, but let's say I want both the 2- and then these 2 buttons to appear in the same line. So these 2 buttons can be again put inside of a div. this can be called like a button container or whatever. And if you save it, yeah, so now these are two things. Now comes an important part where we'll be learning just a hint of layout management using something known as flex. So we type flex and then justify center, and if you save it, we can see that all the elements are centered in the in between in a orderly manner, in a line by line manner. But you can see that the to dash is lower and the buttons are slightly higher. So for this, we also have items center. And then if you don't know how this is happening, no need to worry at all, because you can go through the docs and learn, or you can just ask AI to, help you out in arranging and what type of properties that you need to look out for in order to arrange your layout in a specific way. So now you can see both they are in a line as well. But let's say I want this to dash to be at the left and these two buttons to be at the right. So there is another, instead of justify center, there is another property called justify between. So it leaves a lot of space between the elements. And if we refresh, there you go. That looks much more neater, much more cleaner, nice. Okay. So now I think probably our nav component is like pretty good enough for now. Of course, when these buttons are clicked, it should go to other components, and then there is routing and all that kind of stuff that we will not get into too much right now. We will worry about that in the later implementation whenever we are, whenever we are doing actual implementation of signing up and stuff like that. For now, let's just focus on the rendering of to-dos from our backend, making calls, etc. So now there are various ways to go about this. I'm also thinking add to-do, display list of to-do. Should I make all of them into like one to-do component? I think that would be much better. So let's say under components, I'll create another file. Let's say todo.jsx. Alright, cool. And then RAFCE. So this is just a simple plain. Let me just make it and then to do. Let's just import it in app.jsx, and then we can close app.jsx for now because we don't need to import to do from it should do it automatically. Import to do from, yes, there we go. And then we'll just put the to do component here. Okay, yeah, so you can see that the to do component is being loaded. So I can close app.jsx for now, and even app.jsx. Now we'll write the main core logic where we do where we store all the to-dos and run through them. For this, we also need to start our backend. So I'd stop the front end for now for a quick second. And as you can see here, we can go to our server and right click and open an integrated terminal. So now we get two terminals, one for the front end and one for the server. So we as far as we remember, we can start using nodemon or node index.js. So that will start our server on 3000. Now we don't need to worry about anything else there. And yeah, so I don't think we ever needed to stop this, but okay. So we'll just run this again. So now we have basically started our server and we have started the client as well. So both are being hosted. Now we need to make calls from here, this todo.jsx, to that server and get a response back. Cool. So these calls we will be using Axios to do. So import React from React. Now we will import Axios like this. I think import Axios from Axios. Cool. Let's say I want obviously to store first of all the list of to-dos, comma set to-dos. So that is going to be an empty array for now initially. It will later on contain the array of to-dos. Then let's say I want to create okay, so whenever I'm creating a new to-do, okay, fine, we'll split the new to-do logic into a separate container. That's not an issue. And let's say once we are displaying the to-dos from this array, let's say we want to edit a certain to-do. So const let's keep track of what to do that we are actually editing. Set edit to do, and this can be called as soon as we click on the edit button for any of these to dos, and we can just call it the structure of the to do object, which used to be like id, and then for now we can leave it as null, so nothing, and then task can be like an empty string. So this must all be familiar. This is the structure of the to do from the backend that we've written. So now let's leave these two here. Then actually let me just fix the indentation really quick. Okay, so now let's write a function to get, first of all, the to-dos from our server and display it. So let's say we write a function called fetch to-dos, and then we can write an arrow function, and then we write something known as a try catch block. Now what is a try catch block? We have not seen this so far. This is basically used to execute code that could generate errors, and in case that they generate errors, instead of the program, or instead of the website continuously just stopping to work suddenly, instead of that, the error will be caught by this catch block, and then it will be printed, and the remaining parts of the website will still continue to work. So whenever we are executing a line of code that could generate an error, then we use it, then we put it in this try catch block. So inside of try, we put the code that we want to run, and in case there's an error, that error will be caught in the catch block. So we can just write some error here, and then if it is dot caught, we can just say console.log that error. Yeah, cool. So in try now, what do? Well, we store a response, and we need to get this response from our server. So we need to do axios, and since we are just getting info, it is a get request, axios.get, and we know that where is our server hosted. If you do Control J and go to our server, if we go to our server, server is running on port 3000. So if you just delete this, server is running on port 3000. So that means nothing but localhost 3000. So we type http://localhost 3000 / get to dos. So get to dos was the route that we defined in our backend. So we send a get request to this URL, and then in response we get a list of all of our to dos. And then now once we get that to dos, where are we supposed to set it? In this, obviously in this use state. So we call set to dos. This state variable holds all of our to dos. Set to dos response.data. So whatever data we get from there, we set it inside of to dos. So this is basically fetch to dos. Now another hook that we have to learn is similar to use state. There is something known as use effect. So use effect basically runs a certain bit of code whenever a certain component is updated, and the syntax is like this. So you use effect, and then we write an arrow function which decides what to do when a certain component is updated. So we call fetch to dos. Let's say we are calling fetch to dos, and then we write an empty array. Now what does this empty array mean? Well, whenever we declare use effect like this, generally we declare inside this array a list of components to a list of state variables or to look out for. When they changed, this function should be run. But if we leave it as an empty, so basically whenever the website is first loaded, then this fetch to dos is called. So that's what this use effect means. So whenever you open the website, or whenever you load the website for the first time, this fetch to dos is called. So use effect of fetch to dos. Okay, and one more thing here is, let's say inside of const fetch to dos, if we run this function, we do axios.get, and then we store it in response, and then set to dos response.data. However, this here is an asynchronous call, in the sense that this will take some time. Therefore, for each asynchronous call, the function here is async, and then we need to await here on this line, await to get the response into this variable, and then move on with the rest of the website. So this is an asynchronous call, and then so for this we need to use async and await keywords. In general, if you want to know more about what async await is or what promises are in JavaScript, I'd highly recommend you go through javascript.info. But for now, this basic understanding of this being an asynchronous call, hence we need to write the keyword async and await before that function call of axios.get. That much is enough for now, the basic knowledge. Alright, so now we have a function to fetch the various to-dos. And what else do we need? Let's see. Alright, we'll do one thing. We'll also write the adding of a new to-do right here itself. So we'll type const new to-do, comma, set new to-do. And this is just going to be like an empty string, because the to-do basically is the task. So we'll just leave it as an empty string. Alright, so now we have three state variables here. To-dos keeps track of our entire to-do list. New to-do keeps track of what new to-do that we are going to add. And then edit to-do keeps track of what to-do that what is the task that we're currently editing. Okay, cool. So, and also we've written the fetch to-dos method for now. So let's write a function called add to do. So const add to do equal to, again the same logic, all of these functions have to be asynchronous functions. Alright, so whenever we want to do const add to do, we'll assume that the new to do value, the new string, this is what we want to add. So we'll again write the same try catch error. In fact, we can copy this from here. So the try block will change, catch error console.log error remains the same. So now instead of a get request here, const response, we still do get a response. Here we write await axios.post. So since we're sending data to the server, now it is a post request. So we write HTTP, the same URL. In fact, I can just copy this quickly. HTTP localhost 3000 get to-dos, but get to-dos is not the route. Now we have the route add to-dos. So we need to make a post request to this add to-dos. And then we also need to, along with this, pass the data that we want to add. So the data that we are passing here is task colon new to do. So new to do is the string that contains the new task that we want to add. That is our state variable here, new to do, and we are passing that as a task back to the backend server through axios.post. Also, so one more thing, since here we are getting a get request and we are getting some data back, we need a response variable. Here we don't really need a response variable, so we can just remove that. Alright, so once we've sent our new to do to the backend, we can set our new to do to be empty. So we can call set new to do to back to being an empty string. And since we've updated some data at the backend, we can call the fetch to dos function again in order to make sure that our local to dos are updated. They will be, but still it's always good practice to, once you post data to the backend, to get all the data back as well. Right. So that is basically the add to do function. Then let's say, okay, let's do another easy function. So let's say const delete to do. We want to delete a to do list item. Again, same logic, async function, arrow function, and then the same try catch. So we'll just copy paste, and then we'll remove all the code in the try block. All right. So now we need to send a delete request to the to do that we want to delete. Now here, so far we didn't take any arguments or into the arrow function because all of them were set in the state variable. But let's say I want to delete a certain to do. So therefore I need to pass in the ID of that to do. We have seen in the backend that ID is being automatically incremented in the previous session. So we need to pass the ID of the to do that we want to delete. So let's say ID. We'll see later how this is actually working in the UI. But for now, let's say I'll keep it as ID and leave it. All. So now what we do is we do we do await, similar to the post request, we don't get any response. We are making changes in the backend, so we don't need to write any response variable. So await Axios dot delete request. So this is a delete request, and then to the same URL. So HTTP localhost, and then we paste it here. Sorry, just give me a second. Yeah, we paste it here, but now the route will change. It's not add to dos, it will be delete to do. So delete to do. And what do we need to send here is the ID or the data that we want to delete. So let's say data equal to, and since data equal to, we need to send it as an ID. Alright, this delete request is completed. Similar to before, we just do a fetch to dos to update our local list of to dos in the front end. And finally, let's come to the update to do method. This might be a little bit trickier to understand, but still we'll go over it. So const update to do equal to async ID. No, I don't think we need a ID for this, because similar to new to do, we have a state variable keeping track of what to do we are actually editing. So we don't need to pass in any parameters. We'll just get it from our state variable. Alright, cool. So const update to do async. Then we, again, the same logic, we take the same try catch block and remove all the data in the try. And then here we call Axios dot update. So, or Axios dot put request is basically like a put HTTP request. So we do await Axios dot put same URL. So that will be, do I have it still here? No, I don't have it. Let me just take it. Right, and the route will now change to, instead of delete to do, it will be update. I believe it's to do's. Okay, so there is slight inconsistency in the route naming, but that's okay. You guys can fix it on your end. Anyways, update to do's. And then now I need to send the entire new to do object back. So that will be ID colon. What is the to do that we are currently editing? It is stored in edit to do, this state variable. So ID colon is edit to do dot ID, and then the task, the new task, whatever it is edit to do dot task. So we have to send this entire object to the update to do's method. So we are sending it back, and then we of course have the catch block catching any error. Finally, of course, same like delete logic, we are going to or same like add logic rather, we set the new to do to empty and then fetch to do's. Here we'll set the set edit to do to empty. Since we have already edited, we are currently not editing any to do, so we'll set edit to do to back to this ID null and task empty. So we'll set it back to that. Oops, inside. And then we'll call fetch to do's in order to make sure that our front end and back end are synchronized and have the same to do list. Alright, so cool. Those are basically the functions that we need to perform the various works. Of course, fetch to do's is the basic one, and then adding, deleting, and updating. These are the calls that we make to the backend to make sure that we add, delete, and update our to-do lists. Alright, so now that we've written all the functions, it's time to start focusing on the front end part, or on the part that we're actually going to display. So let's say we'll wrap everything in a div. It's nice, and let's make it like a nice flex box. So we'll say flex call maybe, because it's still a column based type of layout. So let's say h1 to dash, and then let's just justify center items center to keep everything neat and centered. Alright, so to dash, first let's have the new to do kind of that's not div, that's div there. So let's first have the new to do here. So we'll put our input inside of this div. So we'll use like an input or like a text box for our this thing. So input, there are a lot of actually properties maybe that we need to write. So let's make it like a self-closing tag kind of thing. All right, so input, let's keep the type as it's a text type. And if you're not familiar with this is just HTML forms and things like that. So you can, you know, have a look at that. Then the value that is to be inside this input is the value of new to do, the state variable new to do. Now, okay, but currently you may say, okay, the new to do state variable is an empty string. Now, how do you enter text into this input? Well, for that we have similar to how buttons have an on click event, a text box has an, or a text input has an on change event. So we can use this on change event and write a function. Generally we could just specify the name of a function here, but I want to keep things concise, so let me write a new arrow function here, and I'll pass the event e. Event e is basically whichever character is being pressed in the or event e is basically whatever is happening from the keyboard, and then this is like a simple arrow function. Now what should this function do? It should set the new to do function to e dot target dot value. So that is basically what this function should be doing. So initially it's an empty string, then on change, if I say I type the character a, it will become a. Then if I type the character b, then the text box e will return ab. So again I set new to do to ab, and so on and so forth. So that is how it works. E.target.value gives you basically the text placed inside the text box. And then after this input, maybe we can add like a button, add, or let's say we can just make it a plus sign itself. And then we've already written a add function. So on click of this button, we should be calling the add to do function. All right, cool. And then maybe we can give it like a nice maybe class name, I don't know, something. All right, so I've done some slight styling to the buttons, nothing too serious. And okay, so now that we have handled this, we can go to the next div, where basically now we can start rendering all the to-dos. So we can say h2/h2 to-dos. So this will basically render all of our to-dos, and this is similar to that how we used the map function. So we'll use to-dos.map, and then we'll pass the to-do into an arrow function, right? So now we'll create an li for each to-do, and then the key will be to-do.id that is coming, and then yeah. Now here there is an important conditional rendering. In case if the to-do.id that we are rendering is equal to the edit to-do.id. So the edit to-do is basically the to-do that we have currently selected for editing. So we write a question mark there. Then we render a certain way, where we render again an input. So we can render this entire thing itself, to be honest. Okay, the indentation is kind of gone, but you understand the gist of it. All right, cool. And on change of this here, instead of new to do, we'll write edit to do dot task, because since edit to do is a full to do object, we need to specify task. And then on change e, we set edit to do to, and then we use this dot edit to do this operator, comma task equal to e dot target dot value. So now what does this dot operator means is that it will go through edit to do, which is here eventually it is id null and task empty string, and then it will fill it in with task is equal to e dot target dot value. since we are already checking for todo.id equals edit todo.id, we're assuming that edit todo id is no longer null and instead has been set to edit mode. So id is there, but task is an empty string. Therefore, we use the dot operator. We get the set edit to do, and then we only fill in the task information. So task now becomes e.target.value with the same id. All right. That's basically what we do on change. And we also have a update to do button that we need to add. So we can just copy paste this button. So if we just close this here. Okay, it is showing something wrong. Okay, no, nothing. I just need to close some tags. So we can button dot on click, instead of add to, it must be update to do. And then we can say, okay, let's call it a save button. All right. So this is one part. So we've just done, if you observe here, if it is an edit to do, we show the to do as this. If it's not, so we close this and then type if it's not, then what do we show? We just show directly an li with so in the li we just directly print to do dot task, and then we now here, since this is a normal task and not in editing mode, here we write a button which gives us the option to go into the editing mode. So now button.onClick, we button.onClick, we need to write a special type of function here. So let me just click enter here. So and then I'll write onClick on a separate line. So button.onClick, what I want to do here. So this is basically the edit button. So let me just change the name here. So now button.onClick, what I want to happen is, I'll write an arrow function here. Sorry. Right. So first I need to set the edit to do to the current to do ID and to do task, and then I need to close the edit button. So basically we have here edit to do state variable, and initially it's null and the task is an empty string. So now I want to set it to the current to do's ID and name, so that the current to do's name can be edited, and then it on the next render it goes to the top part, because edit to do.id will be equal to do.id. So I will be setting set edit to do to set edit to do to id equal to the current to do.id, comma task colon current to do.task. So that's basically it. That's a simple function that we've written directly here. So that is what you do in the OR case. I know this is a little bit of a circular logic. If I tell you this before and then go into this one, it would have made more sense. But I'm pretty sure that you guys have understood what I'm talking about here. So and then we can close this conditional rendering, and then finally, hang on. And then finally, after this, we can just create a common delete button, which could be common for everyone. So I just click here, delete to do, and then I pass in to do.id, because remember that was the only function where we did not have a state variable. We needed to pass in the id parameter, and then we'll write delete, and then finally we can end this li. So where is this li ending? So we need to close the curly braces and then the simple braces. All right. So this, and then this, and then another this. All right. Did I cover everything? Okay. I'm still being shouted at. I do not understand for what. I think this is it. I don't need any more. Yeah, perfect. No. To-dos.map to do. I open a curly brace here. All right. Create an li here. semicolon here. All right, so that's it. That's about it. We are done. And if we just quickly refresh here, yeah, so currently there's no to-dos. All right, so there is a slight change to be made in the backend. We first need to run npm I of cores. We need this package in order to make sure that we can run both the front end and back end in the same device. So we write var cores equal to require cores, and then we add this line app.use of cores. So now that that is done, we'll first in our server terminal, we'll write nodemon or node index.js. So that will start that server on 3000, and then we'll in our front end server we'll write npm run dev to start our React app. And then if we refresh this, we can see it's a completely fresh, let's say task 1. If we add, so task 1 is added, then we get the edit button. We can say task 1 2, and then click on save, then task abc something else. So now that's another list, and then we can delete 1 2, and then we can edit abc to say abcd, etc. So all the functions are working. Of course the UI looks not up to the mark, but then this can be easily solved by passing it through some AI tools. So if you would want me to demonstrate, you can go to AI tools such as GPT or Perplexity or DeepSeek or Claude or whatever. So there's so many AI tools. So you can just pass this entire code into an AI tool in order to get a more defined UI. Or if you really want to learn Tailwind, you can go through each feature that you want, and then add it to the class names in order to make sure that you get a nice and well-defined user interface. So that's about it, I guess, for React and how to use the various React concepts in order to build this small project. And then next we'll be looking into how to make the data that is being stored persistent, and so on. So yeah, that's it for this one.